Hi guys, so I wanted to do a more in-depth video of how I create flawless skin. I get asked so many times, what foundation do you use and how do you get it to last all day? So I thought I'd give you more of an in-depth video. The first product I'm going in with is the Bobbi Brown Illuminating Moisture Balm. This is absolutely gorgeous for giving you a glowy skin. It really softens your skin, which helps when you're applying foundation because it goes on so smoothly. My favourite primer moisturizer is actually the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Face Base. I absolutely love that one. That's my ultimate favourite, but I have run out, so I'm using this one today just because it's what I've got in the drawer. Probably the best thing I've got other than the face base. I'm also going to go in with the MAC Fast Response Eye Cream just under the eyes. This has caffeine in, so it helps to wake up the under eyes, and the moisture obviously helps your concealer to blend all in a lot smoother. For a primer, I'm using the Smashbox Photo Finish Primer. So this helps to blur out any pores. It's actually really, really good. I'd probably say it's better than the Benefit one just because it's more wet consistency, so it's not as chalky. And just popping that in the centre of my face, just working it outwards slightly. The next thing I'm going to go in with is the Estee Lauder Double Wear Foundation. This is my Ride or Die foundation. I'm using the shade Tawny and Honey Bronze mixed together. It is quite yellow compared to me, but I quite like a yellow foundation. However, I do have normally more of a pinky skin tone. But I work that in with a damp beauty blender and just pressing it into the skin. It's really full coverage, like you only need a tiny little bit on a palette, and then working that in all around any areas that you can see. So my ears, my neck, making sure I've got no harsh lines anywhere, just patting it in. This is probably the longest part of my makeup routine because I really work that in and make sure there's no missed areas. Because once Estee Lauder dries, it dries matte. So then trying to touch up afterwards just doesn't look right, and it can look quite patchy. So yeah, just working that all into my forehead. I pop it onto the eyelids as well, especially if I'm not wearing eyeshadow, because again, it just makes everything look more flawless and blended. But the best thing about this foundation is it's transfer resistant. So if you touch your face, it doesn't come off. And obviously it's matte, it's self-mattifying, so it just dries matte and it doesn't budge. So this is the perfect foundation if you're going on a night out, you're going to be dancing and sweating because it just does not move. Once I've finished working that into the skin, we're going to go in with concealer. The two I'm going to use today are the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer in Light, which is really light, and the Too Faced Born This Way Sculpting Concealer in Vanilla. So I'm just going to mix them both together. I love the yellowness from the vanilla because it's quite brightening, but then I also like the lightness from the Shape Tape Concealer, and Shape Tape gives you that really full coverage. The Too Faced one's quite full coverage as well, to be honest, but it's a little bit more creamy. So I'm just working those in both with a damp beauty blender, the same one I use for my face, but I'm using the more angled side of it now. And then a little trick that I like to do is any leftover foundation on my palette or my hand, I use on the flat side of the sponge just around the edges of where I've put the concealer, and that just helps it look a bit more blended. This can look quite crazy, to be honest, but until you've started your powder in and your bronze in, it all kind of blends together really nicely at the end. I also put concealer in the middle of my forehead, down my nose, the tip of my cupid's bow, my chin, just where the light would naturally hit it, just to highlight those areas. And just keep working that in. I do like to use concealer sometimes as well for a base for eyeshadow, but not always. Sometimes I use an eyeshadow base. So just working that in. Again, this bit takes me a while as well because I have to have it quite perfect. So we're going to set all the concealer now with the Laura Mercier Translucent Setting Powder. And I'm using the Real Techniques powder sponge. This sponge is amazing. So just patting that in, really patting it into pressing it into the skin. And that's going to stop any creasing. And again, it just helps your makeup to sit flawlessly all day. So I'm going to go exactly where I've put the concealer. So under the eyes, the middle of the forehead, and on the chin. But I also have a really oily cheek for some reason. Like my cheeks are really oily for some reason, so I press it a little bit onto my cheeks. And I'm just patting out the concealer on my eyelid just to make sure that's all blended, and applying translucent powder with a brush straight onto my eyelids. So that stops my eyelids from creasing. I get asked a lot, oh, what eyeshadow do you use on a day-to-day basis? And most of the time I haven't even got an eyeshadow on. I've just put foundation and a little bit of powder, translucent powder, to set the foundation. So yeah, it just makes everything look more blended. So we're going to bronze now. So I'm just going to leave that powder there just to bake. And we're going to go in with the Benefit Hoola bronzer. This is really nice for contouring because it's got that more of a cool tone. I'm just going to work that in just under the cheekbones and on my forehead. Always make sure you drag it right back to the hairline so it looks a bit more natural and it's not starting in the middle of your forehead. And I also go under the chin as well. The video did just cut out, so I went in down my nose as well, and I also went over with a little bit of mineralized powder by MAC, the dark mineralized powder, just to brighten it up a little bit and give it some warmth. So the blusher I'm applying right now is the MAC Gingerly blusher, and I've just popped that onto the cheeks just above the bronzer. And we're going in with the Doll Beauty Shine Bright highlighter, just a little bit. I don't like too much at the moment. I'm preferring more of a matte base, and I'm just popping a little bit of that on the tops of my cheeks and just down my nose. What I'm going to do now, guys, is just cut you off because you don't need to see everything else. That's pretty much how I do my base. I'm going to add on my brows, lips, lashes, and this is the finished look. So this is kind of my everyday skin, quite full coverage, but that's the way I like it. Hope you enjoyed.